Welcome everyone to our Astro Yoga chats. I'm Kate.
And I'm Natalie. Hi.
Bring our palms together and close the eyes. Take a very big inhale from your lower belly. Expand your lower belly and then keep lifting the breath up your chest towards your collarbones to the crown of your head. And exhale the breath. Let's do that one more time. Big inhale, lower belly expands. Yogic breath, keep inhaling up the body, up the torso, to the crown of your head. And then exhale. Release the hands down and open up your eyes. And we're excited to be here with you today. We have some cool stuff to talk about.
Yes, and maybe you all feel the energy already. So tomorrow we have one more eclipse for this eclipse season, and it will be a lunar eclipse. So that is actually, they say, a full moon on steroids. So it's an intense full moon, and it will be on 5 degrees of Taurus. So it's in the axis of Taurus, and a full moon, of course, is always in opposition. So also 5 degrees of Scorpio, and that's actually the money axis, right? Like Taurus is the money you make, and Scorpio is like, investments and stuff like this, and also debts and stuff. So we also in the series of our house system. So Taurus represents the second house. So we want to talk about money and self-worth, what the second house represents. So the eclipse tomorrow will be happening on 5 degrees of Taurus. So if you have any planet or a specific point in your chart on 5 degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, or also in the square 5 degrees of Leo or Aquarius, you will feel it. And you can feel it 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. And it can actually bring big changes. So they say lunar eclipses, because it's a full moon, so it's a fruition, it will actually complete a chapter. And we started this chapter between Taurus and Scorpio in November of 2021. So we always have eclipse cycles for 1.5 years in one area. Now it shifted already. So this shift started already a little bit earlier to Aries and Libra, but it's the last one in Taurus and Scorpio. So maybe there's a topic in your life that has to do with Taurus, money, worth, self-worth, and also depending in which house it is, where something comes to a fruition, completion, maybe not only from 1.5 years ago, because the last time that happened was actually 18 to 19 years ago. So it could actually also be a very big cycle that is closing now.
Wow. Is there anything that we can do during the lunar eclipse to help us connect to like what might be closing, or are there any rituals that happen that we can do? Like I've heard during new moons, you set intentions, right? Because it's like everything is brand new yet, so you can plant your seeds. And during full moons, you let something go that you no longer need. Is there anything that we can do to help us?
I think, like writing down whatever you want to let go of, and, whatever is completing, that is definitely something that you can do. I also hear from, Indian astrologers that you can chant mantras for the moon, for Chandra, right? So that's something you can do. But most of all, everything is about awareness. So, go back, did something happen between the last 2 weeks and now? Is there something emotionally stirring up? Is there a certain way how you feel? Maybe people feel really tired because it's a huge energy. It's an energy change and energy shift right now. And that's affecting also the body. So maybe, all you need right now is really a lot of rest. And many planets are involved in this eclipse too. So it's Mars and Mercury. People then that are not very aware could have like arguments. Mars is, arguments, and Mercury is, of course, your speech, and it's opposed by Jupiter, which makes everything bigger. So it could be pretty intense.
I mean, if that doesn't describe our world, I don't know what would. Like,
Yeah. But
um,
you want to show us the chart of the house system?
sure. Give me one moment as I find this on my screen. Give me one moment.
So
Mhm.
last time we started, of course, with the first house, which has to do with your appearance, your body, your character, your personality.
Here
And
you
now
go.
yes, we are here at house number 2, and it says finances, spending habits, possessions. And with money, it always has to do with self-worth too, because if you have issues with money or you have a job that doesn't pay so well, why did you take a job that doesn't pay you well? So it's always connected to self-worth. Also very interesting, Vedic astrology has so many more meanings for the houses. So
Hmm.
in Vedic astrology, the second house is also connected to everything that goes in and out of your mouth. So in means it has to do with your food intake. If you
Mhm.
have specific planets in the second house, you could be very picky about food or have, certain issues, certain foods you cannot eat. Also, what's coming out of your mouth, your words, your speech, your voice. So if you have like good beneficial planets like Venus in the second house, maybe you have a beautiful voice, and you can make money with your voice. And it also has to do with family. So in Western astrology, more the fourth house has to do with family, and it's more like your family, like the family you build. It's also the mom. But in Vedic astrology, they mean family also like your early childhood family and early childhood issues. So isn't that interesting, Kate, that if there are certain issues or things that happened in your early childhood, it affects your self-worth, and therefore you might have an issue with making money.
Absolutely, because we all have families that, like, especially you're a little kid, you're not out there making money. You're not out there with your career yet. You're a 7-year-old kid who's just like their job is to have fun and play. And it's the parents' responsibility, which it is, to build that foundation. And of course, some parents do the best that they can. And then things happen, though. Things happen, and we're all human, and everything can feel quite volatile. So when you're a kid and you're and everything in your life when you're a little kid changes and shifts, that's a direct effect on you. Like you feel that. And I think that that's where the practice of yoga and understanding yourself and in essence not blaming yourself for the way that you feel, right? Because when you did the best that you could as a kid handling those situations, and as you grow up you do the best that you can. Once you form your own, like, I'm going to say, like, life, right now you're on your own. And especially when you come into the practice of self-awareness and self-worth and understanding yourself, you can shift your previous feelings about yourself just by being aware of that whatever it is that you're holding on to from the past is not necessarily you, and you don't have to keep feeding that energy. You don't have to keep feeding that. you know um yeah. i
And
i
it's not about having a perfect life, because we all have traumas and problems and issues and maybe programming from family, society, school, whatever that was not so good. But once we step on the yoga mat, we start moving physically, but there's stuff releasing, and we go deeper and stuff is coming up, and then you look at it, and once you become aware, like once you send your attention there, you actually have the potential to change and transform it.
There's a beautiful system in yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga of Patanjali. And the system is gorgeous because it shows you how you're going to go through different, in a sense, like cycles. Like I sometimes think of them as like washing machine cycles, like it's like you stand on top of your mat and you think you're aware, and then as you practice you become more and more aware of the subtleties of life, like of let me pull up the chart of the 8 limbs so that way we can see it, and we can talk about this. But
Like also like last week we mentioned like yoga, it's not just doing physical exercises on a mat. You can be a yogi and never been on a mat, but it's like a certain lifestyle and how you treat other people. So like with the yamas and niyamas that we see here, that's just things you do out in society, and it's not necessarily on the mat, but you still have yogic qualities.
yep. And when you're dealing, so let's say, because we're talking about the second house, we're talking about money, we're talking about self-worth, that let's say, if right now in this moment, you do not have a very positive relationship with money or a positive relationship with your self-worth, know that it can change. You do not have to hold on to that and be that. These yamas and these niyamas are the first one. The yamas are things that we do to actually like okay, ahimsa, non-harming. Like, you don't want to harm other people, you don't want to harm other beings. When you start practicing yoga, this happened to me, that I became a vegetarian when I started practicing yoga, and it was like the yoga was just working on me, right? So like yoga works with you. You don't realize how or why or what's going on, but yoga is going to work with you. Just let it happen by being present.
And yoga makes you, like you always have the choice, do the right thing or not the right thing. And when you're on the yogic path, more often you're going to choose the right thing. So with the second one, for instance, not lying, like how can you be on the mat and look at yourself, and whatever you do, you're also going to look at what you say. So second house, speech, right? Not lying, obviously, we're going to do the right thing and be truthful.
Yeah. And it takes time, right? So I'm going to just stop sharing this for a moment. It takes time. It's not like you just start practicing and all of a sudden you're going to, because it's also like not lying also to yourself, right? It's like not lying to yourself. Like, there are times when you're on your yoga mat and you know that you shouldn't be doing something. And then at the same time, it's like, uh-oh, but I'm doing it again. Why am I doing it again? It will take time to break that habit, So
Right. And like other yamas and niyamas, for instance, non-hoarding. Oh my God, Jagger is here.
he's Elvis, Jackies, look, it's Elvis. No.
Oh.
Jagger was just in the conversation scratching at the floor, so I felt like he had to like come up and say hi.
Our babies.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But that's the thing though, like yoga works in ways that you're like, okay, but when I became a vegetarian, and it's funny because I wrote an article about it, and it's the vegetarian part just started to happen because as I became more aware of having compassion to all living beings, I was like, whoa. And just like, you shared your story about how you
Like,
became a
once I had Elvis, I mean, we actually grew up vegetarian, but then I added, a few things here and there later on as a grown up. But once I had Elvis and I looked into his big, black eyes, I was like, I can never eat anything again that has eyes. It's just
Oh,
impossible, even
yeah.
though he eats it, and he should, he's a dog, but I'm a human, I can make a choice. So
You can make a choice. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how this is how yoga also comes into your life, and it starts working in your life. It starts working with your life. You start to shift and change because of your awareness. And and you might not have ever heard of these yamas or niyamas before, but when you're on the yoga mat, something magical, like the more you practice, your self-awareness is what really grows. And I think also then your self-worth, right? So
self-worth and being truthful, right? And like some of them are, for instance, non-stealing, obviously, non-hoarding. Isn't that interesting? So money, if you have a good relationship with money, you get a lot of money and you can also spend money, because once it's in flow, it's also coming back to you. But if you're just hoarding it, energetically, that's also not really the correct thing, so It's very interesting, and they knew it so many thousands of years ago, right? What's the right thing to do? It's a little bit like, the 10 Commandments, like people always have these rules, but not everybody is sticking to them. So,
Right, right, right. There was something that you said earlier about self-worth and money, and I just really quick, this popped into my head. I wanted to share this because when you first become a yoga teacher, right, you basically start teaching for free because your idea of self-worth at the moment as a yoga teacher is quite low, isn't it? Like you're like, oh my gosh, now I have all this information and I can teach yoga. And you stand in front of a room and you tell people inhale, arms up, and they all do it. It's like Simon Says, it's like, whoa, whoa. Right. So in the beginning, when you are a yoga teacher at the very beginning, be prepared to like teach a lot for free, to teach a lot for little, because you're learning how to work with that energy. You're learning how to be that person who is guiding, not just physically, but energetically and emotionally and spiritually. And then as you go along your path, suddenly, you begin to develop more of a self-worth, and you're just, I mean, I've been teaching now for like, geez, almost 14 years, so at this point, like I can say, no, that's my rate. This is my rate. But even now it makes me feel a little awkward, to say like, that's my rate. And I have to remind myself like, but Kate, this is your rate. And if somebody is going to tell you, no, that's too high, you can say, I understand, but then I'm not your teacher, because, like, it's just like, but this is my, I just wanted to share that because I think that as you're on the yoga path and as you're teaching, you might feel sometimes that you're not going to be making a lot of money in the beginning. And even at, however long you've been doing it, like you might not feel like you're making enough money. And that's whenever perhaps you start to find different avenues of like different ways to share your yogic energy. It's like what you said, and I love it. And I'm going to keep this because you can have all the money that you want. You can hoard it and you can pile it up and you can shove it underneath of your mattress and it will do nothing except you will be afraid of losing it. And then you're not letting that energy flow.
And you know what? My grandmother, she used to say, everything happened in my life that I was afraid of. So fear is actually attracting what you're afraid of. And the other thing, everything that you ever wanted in your life is on the other side of fear. So all our fears are actually not there to avoid them, but to go through them, right? And everything you want is on the other side. So like every lesson in life, like, is it wrong programming? Is it a difficult childhood? Is it self-worth issues? Is it money issues? Whatever you have, that's there for a reason. And the only reason is to overcome it, right? So we are not meant to be stuck in all of this.
That is so
That's
cool.
one way to get there,
Yeah, yeah. And that's hope. Okay, so this is spiritual practice. That's also hope. That's also not feeling like, okay, well, this is, I'm stuck, I'm anchored in this spot. No, you're not, and to think that what you want is on that other side of fear, what you think, and just push through
And as we also said last time with the eclipses, because last time, we just had the solar eclipse, eclipses are huge magical cycles of beginnings and completions. So I think the divine, or whatever you want to call it, has a certain plan. For a certain amount of time, you're going to sit in this story until you solve it. And at some point, everything is over in life, right? At some point, you can overcome it. You've learned your lessons. Well, and then the next lessons come, right? But there's a time for everything. So maybe at this point with this lunar eclipse of completion, you've learned certain lessons in your life and you can just let it go.
I love that. I'm gonna say let's stop right there, because that was just, I hope that everyone who's listening right now, perhaps that can be our homework, okay, during this lunar eclipse, is to like just take some time and be quiet and or write down, what you've been learning and what are the lessons, not lessons, but like where do you see a completion in your life? Like where do you see like, a cycle that you've been going through maybe over the last 2 years? Maybe it was longer, because as you mentioned, it was even from 18 years ago, right? And then you look around and then just see, and it could be the most simple thing that has the most profound change. But just observe over this weekend.
Yes, so have a great weekend and
Yeah.
stay very aware what's going on.
Cool. Let's bring our palms together. Let's take one last breath, okay, for this episode. And thank you all for being here. Take a deep inhale and then a big exhale. Great. Open up your eyes. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.